Development Forum. Today we are starting our seminar and we will discuss the implementation of the project called Digitalization of the Linguistic and Cultural Heritage of the Indigenous Peoples of the Arctic. We'll be discussing problems and prospects of this project and new initiatives such as establishing new interregional and international cooperation, and we'll share best practices in digitalization and preserving our heritage. So if everybody's here, let's start the official part of our seminar, and I give the floor to Nikolai Korchunov, the Ambassador at Large for the Arctic Cooperation at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Russia and the Chair of the Arctic Council of Senior Arctic Officials.
Arctic friends, colleagues, organizers, and participants of the international seminar, the digitalization of the linguistic and cultural heritage of the indigenous peoples of the Arctic. I would like to warmly welcome all of you today and would like to congratulate Sakha Republic Yakutia that this particular project became one of the priority projects during the Russian chairmanship in the Arctic Council, and this project has been highlighted in the Reykjavik Ministerial Declaration adopted 20 May this year. As its priority issue, Russian chairmanship considers a preservation of the identity and heritage of indigenous peoples of the North. That identity is an identity of the entire Arctic region. The period of Russian chairmanship in the Arctic Council aligns with the start of United Nations International Decade of Indigenous Languages. And in this context, this project becomes a significant contribution of the Arctic Council to this important decade. I also would like to admit that this project unites all permanent participants of the Arctic Council, and we need more cooperation and more projects like this where people could work together across the borders on important issues for a better future for the Arctic region and its people. Russia attaches great importance to creating conditions for learning in native languages, also through internet platforms that provide wide access to users from all over the world. New technologies are integral and vital part of modern life, and it is very important to use these technologies also in favor of preserving and development of native languages and cultures of indigenous peoples. We see that the work on expeditions to the places of traditional residence of the indigenous peoples of the North continues. Noting with satisfaction recent activities in Evenki community in Iyengre village and in the Arctic School for Indigenous Students of the North in Neringi in Republic Sakha-Yakutia. I also hope that today's seminar will bring more elaboration, new thoughts, new insights, and determination of priority tasks for preserving cultural and linguistic heritage of indigenous peoples of the North. I wish you all fruitful discussions, interesting work, and new insight. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Nikolai. And now allow me to give the floor to Mikhail Pogadaev, Deputy Minister for the Arctic Development and Indigenous Peoples Affairs of the Sakha Republic. He is also the Russian Chairmanship Special Envoy for Indigenous and Regional Cooperation in the Arctic Council. Also, Mikhail is the curator of our project. Please, Mikhail.
Dear Arctic friends, on behalf of the government of Sakha Republic, Yakutia, I would like to welcome all the participants of the international seminar, Digitalization of Linguistic and Cultural Heritage of Indigenous Peoples. Yesterday, we started the third Northern Sustainable Development Forum with a very interesting and productive seminar on protection of intellectual property rights of indigenous peoples of the Arctic, with participation from all permanent participants of the Arctic Council, indigenous peoples organizations, also different Arctic states, and experts on protection of indigenous peoples' rights. It was very interesting, and we all have common understanding that these kind of projects are quite challenging projects, because this is all related to complexity of the issue of indigenous people's intellectual property rights. So we decided that we should be very careful, and first of all we have to put in place the best available international standards on protection of indigenous people's intellectual property rights. And I'm really glad that we started this discussion yesterday on this important topic, because before starting anything challenging, we have to first of all make sure that we protect the indigenous people's rights. Also, I would like to admit that as His Excellency Nikolai Korchinov just said, that this project shows that indigenous peoples organizations, permanent participants of the Arctic Council, have an opportunity to work together to tackle the difficult and important issues of preservation and further development of indigenous peoples' linguistic and cultural heritage. So this is a unique opportunity for all our organizations to be engaged in the common goal, trying to preserve what we have in different Arctic states related to linguistic and cultural heritage. We think that this is very important work, and of course we base this work on existing experience of Sakha Republic. Our university, Northeastern Federal University, has a long history of working with these issues together with indigenous peoples organizations. So I would like to say that we, Sakha Republic, is very glad that this project was prioritized during the Russian chairmanship in the Arctic Council, and our initiative was supported by Arctic states and permanent participants of the Arctic Council. So we would like to work together, have more collaboration, more cooperation with our partners in this project. I would like to thank the Russian chairmanship in the Arctic Council, and Norway and also RIPON as the co-leads of this project. These Arctic states and also permanent participants supported this project, so we're very grateful for this. I also would like to thank the Indigenous Peoples Secretariat for assistance and their support, and our experts who today work in this project, and we satisfied with the dynamics of the implementation of this project, and we see that in the future we will have more interesting work together. So I would like to wish all the participants of this seminar productive discussions, interesting insights, and successful cooperation in the future. Thank you. Okay, we continue our work, dear participants of this our seminar. And now we will start the work of the seminar, and I would like to give a word to Professor Anatoly Zhozhikov, the chairholder of the UNESCO chair at the Northeastern Federal University, who is the project leader of the Arctic Council Sustainable Development Working Group project, digitalization of the linguistic and cultural heritage of the indigenous peoples of the Arctic.
Hello, dear participants. I'd like to tell a lot about works that we do on this project. So we started this project in 2011 at NIFU University, and in 2020 our project was granted as status of a Arctic Council project. We aim to create an international portal of indigenous peoples of the Arctic culture. We research best experiences of those indigenous peoples trying to preserve their language. Lead project country is Russian Federation, Ripon Institute, Norway. Our time frames are on the screen. In January-December 2021 was a preparatory phase. We formed a team of performers. We developed a plan. In 2022, December 2023 is the main phase, and the final stage is in 2024. Our partners are in Norway. With them, we are very successful with project of a GIS map of Arctic indigenous languages as an online resource for education. We will hear about this in bigger detail later. And the next project with Norway is feasibility study on co-production of knowledge between researchers and indigenous communities for climate change adaptation. Svein Mattison is currently presenting this project on the parallel event. The following project is innovation in indigenous food, enhancing of that innovation. This has been presented as well. The next project is machine translation prototypes development of translation between different indigenous languages between each other. Ripon Institute also offers the work you can see on the screen, including our project. So we will sound all the participants of our project that work with us. And our first meeting was in January, and in June we already finalized our joint work. In February, we made a report on the first stage of our project, and in October, we will present a new report to the SDWG working group. Yesterday, an international workshop on intellectual property rights took place yesterday. Our project output is on the screen. That's what we aim to achieve. Every country that takes part in our project must determine its area of work, find the peoples that would like to digitalize their languages. You can see on the picture that Russian Arctic zone is the biggest Arctic zone, and Russia also has the largest number of indigenous peoples living in the Arctic. So there's a lot of work to do. For a project so large, We held a conference over this issue. We held it in Nuremberg earlier in September. We had participants from Russian regions you can see on the screen: Krasnoyarsk, Komi Republic, Moscow, Blagoveshchensk, Yakutsk, Nuremberg, and others. The work was very successful, very constructive, and we decided to organize a consortium of universities, ministries, departments. And today, two representatives of universities who signed the consortium are also present, and I hope they will tell more about this. Speaking technically, we determined implementing organizations that include organizations on the screen. From Norway, it's University of Tromsø and Arctic SDI. And I'd like to show you this part of how this portal will work. So that's the map. You can navigate the map to find the region you need. It contains data on indigenous languages. Where you could read articles with welcome information in an indigenous language and a variety of articles on all related topics. Over the structure of the portal, you can find various information. For example, Linnea Nordstrom will tell more about structure of our portal and how it works. And in the end, I'd like to say that Foreign Minister of Russia, Sergei Lavrov, at the meeting noted our project as very important. And thank you very much for your attention. I hope that our future deeds and following presentations will cover it broadly. Thank you very much.
For the information about the status of implementation of our project. I think that all our partners working together very well, and we hope that we will continue this dynamic of implementation of the project. Okay, we go on, and I would like to give a floor to Linnea Nordstrom. She is from the University, Arctic University of Norway in Tromsø, and she will speak about project GIS map, Arctic indigenous languages and revitalization, an online educational resource. Please, Linnea, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Just a moment and I will share my screen. All right, is it visible, my presentation?
Yes, we can see it.
All right, just a second. I'd like to get up my notes as well if I'm able, just a second. All right, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thank you very much for inviting me to speak at this seminar today. My name is Linnea Nordstrom, and I work as the team lead for library communications at UiT, the Arctic University of Norway University Library. I am going to give a brief status update on the project I am coordinating called Arctic Indigenous Languages and Revitalization, an online educational resource, which is a partner project to the SDWG digitalization project, which we just heard about. A bit of background first. The idea for the project came about in 2019 when the University Library produced an exhibition together with the Arctic Council Indigenous People Secretariat to commemorate the 2019 United Nations International Year of Indigenous Languages. The multimedia exhibition was called Saga Stalamin, telling the story of Arctic indigenous languages. It opened in Tromsø in September 2019 and has since traveled to Harstad, Rovaniemi, Kautokeino, and then back to Tromsø recently to be displayed as part of the Arctic Council 25-year anniversary exhibition. We updated an Arctic indigenous language map for use in the exhibition. A map originally made in 2013 by the Arctic Council Working Group on the Conservation of Arctic Flora and Fauna, or CAF. We consulted with indigenous language experts and fixed obvious errors, but knew that the map needed further work. We also saw limitations to the print format and saw that it would be valuable to convert the map into an online GIS resource with multiple layers for different information. Having received UArctic funding for the project, we began in January 2021 and will be complete during 2022. Since January, we have gathered partners from higher education institutions, government agencies, and NGOs in Canada, Finland, Greenland, Norway, Russia, and the United States. Unfortunately, I don't have time to mention them all, but I have listed them on the slide. In addition, the Arctic Council Indigenous Peoples Secretariat is helping to facilitate permanent participant engagement in the project. So what is the ultimate goal? The overall goal of the project is to create a peer-reviewed academic overview map of languages spoken by the indigenous peoples of the Arctic, which can be used as an openly available educational resource. Our goal is to update a GIS dataset, which will show indigenous language families and geographical distribution with color coding, indigenous languages spoken in the Arctic with names listed in indigenous names, English and Russian, links to resources on language revitalization efforts, and other relevant information as resources allow. The final dataset will be visualized with a simple web application, such as ArcGIS Online or QGIS or similar, and the dataset will also be made available for download and further use as an open access resource. Our status so far. So far in 2021, we have met online monthly, January through May, and again in July and August. During our meetings, we have agreed on a preliminary scope of the map and some working definitions, and we have discussed features and information we hope to be able to include in the final version. We have also held some smaller meetings of some smaller working groups focusing on specifically gathering and editing language revitalization examples, making the map a good educational resource, and designing and inputting data into the GIS map. Over the course of the project so far, we have gathered feedback on the 2019 exhibition map from project partners and others and have compiled it. We have received formal permission from the CAF working group to use their 2013 GIS dataset as a starting point for the new GIS dataset. We have also engaged with Arctic SDI and received some recommendations on best practices for GIS datasets and some support moving forward on the work. Right now, a GIS specialist at UIT has begun working with the dataset to make sure that it corresponds with the updates that we made in 2019 for the exhibition, which is our starting point for the updated map. It was always our intention to kick off and perform much of the active project work through a physical workshop. We originally planned for September of this year, but the workshop has had to be postponed due to COVID-19 travel restrictions. Now, as we are happily seeing restrictions being eased, we are beginning to carefully plan for a physical workshop, hopefully around the time of Arctic Frontiers in Tromsø, Norway, early next year. It is my hope that we can spend the rest of the autumn gathering further feedback from project partners, both jointly and bilaterally as necessary, and then that we will be able to come together in person and make some decisions on what to include and any final gaps that we need to fill before we can produce a final version for review. I also hope that the workshop will be a good network building event where we can bring together linguists, educators, and Indigenous language experts to work together on co-production of knowledge. Ultimately, our hope is that the final result will be a robust academic resource, which features a wide range of examples of language revitalization. We hope as such that the map can be used both to teach an overview of the region for those who are unfamiliar, and also as a networking tool for language revitalization practitioners who are looking to learn from the examples of others. Thank you very much. That was what I had to present.
Thank you, Linnea, and also thank you for very good cooperation. We hope that this GIS map in the future will be a significant part of the digitalization of linguistic and cultural heritage portal. So I also would like to use this moment to thank the Russian Agency for Land Registration, Rosreestr, for the collaboration on working on this GIS map for the languages. Thank you, and we continue. And I would like to remind all the speakers about the time limits, because we have many presenters today. So please keep your presentations by 5 to 7 minutes. And next speaker is Artem Petukhov, Commercial Director of Limited Company Unit from Yakutsk, the project partner. And he will speak about the new software and technological platform of the portal. Please, Artem, the floor is yours.
Коллеги, всех приветствую. Очень рад всех видеть на этом семинаре. Постараюсь кратко рассказать по нашим работам, которые планируются. То есть, речь пойдет о модернизации в техническом плане по развитию существующего на сегодняшний день ресурса Arctic Megapedia.
And this is our Arctic Megapedia
Так,
resource.
мы выделяем 4 основных направления работы, по которым сейчас ведется работа. То есть, во-первых, это создание некого нового инструмента для групповой работы. Это совершенствование технических составляющей существующего портала
Arctic Megapedia portal.
Это создание
creation
of международного хранилища,
joint international data storage, and development of new direction of Arctic Megapedia portal that exists.
То есть первое направление – это, собственно, инструмент групповой работы, который позволяет большим творческим научным коллективам отслеживать проекты, ставить задачи, собственно, вести обсуждения проектов онлайне, то есть
online. So this is working with different types of files and formats. And second direction is
технологического стека, существующего
technology stack. So we are moving from WordPress to new platforms. For example, Node.js, React, changing our databases to React and look back. So this will allow to speed up the work of the portal and use different technical opportunities to work in directions that we've been discussing for a couple of days.
Так, что касается цифрового хранилища,
talking about the universal data storage is a big project for preservation of cultural heritage,
языкового наследия и
about
создание единого большого хранилища. То есть
creation of a large data
направления, да,
storage.
которых
So these
придерживаемся.
are main directions for our project.
Большое облачное хранилище, которое позволит работать, опять же, большому
scalability.
людей с разных
It
стран,
will
в том
allow
числе.
to integrate
Универсальность, то есть возможность хранить
universalism. It structures storage of different types of data, for example, audio, video, images, even 3D models, maps. So there's no limit for formats.
Интеграции, в том числе миграции данных из
Integration or migration of data from other systems into one joint one.
То есть возможность работы с огромными объемами данных.
As technology, it will allow to store larger amounts of data, improve performance. Another one is editability. So this can be accessed from any mobile devices, not just the PC. And main directions of work we are currently on right now. It's a transition to a new portal management system. We integrate the portal with the GeoPortal GIS system. We create audio podcast system. In contemporary media, you know, podcasts is very popular type of media. We create infographics as an easy way of delivering data. We create a digital archive, digital photo and video stock.
Возможно, рассматриваем как вариант это создание некой торговой площадки.
About creating sort of an online trading platform for trading merchandise and other goods made by the indigenous people of the north. There's a bunch of directions like creation of tools for creating virtual museums and excursions, or creation of computer games to popularize indigenous culture. So we do this work. We work closely to Rosregister. We may access data of Russian citizens' data for better statistics and to make more quality information. Thank you very much.
I just would like to comment your presentation and say to our participants that these were proposals of the technical development of the portal, and as we discussed yesterday during the seminar on intellectual property rights, of course we have to make sure that these technical platforms and technical solutions will provide us an opportunity to protect intellectual property rights, and we will of course discuss the technologies also which will be used, and how we will organize the access to the data, etc. We will need to be very careful, and we hope that we will work together to make it in the proper way. Thank you, Artyom. And now I would like to give a floor to our partners from Norway. As I said, Norway is the co-lead Arctic state of this project, and the main partner is the UiT, the Arctic University of Norway in Tromsø, and what I would like to give a floor to Trond Trosterud and Jargal Badagarov. So Trond, please.
Thank you very much. Let me share my screen. So here we are. Okay. The title given, no, wait, one sec, there. So I guess you see my screen now. My title, the use of linguistic technologies and their significance for language documentation. So My topic actually will be basic language technology building from the base, commenting upon reading, writing letters, and writing text. So in order to read, letters must be in Unicode, and all modern letters of Russia are there. Still, many fonts render composed letters poorly. So if you see the long A and the A and compare them to the long E in the lower quote below, the thing is that the letter E and U, they are pre-composed as letters in Unicode. So the kilt, the fourth last word there, that's fine. Whereas the length mark over the E, the Ea Barotnaya and the A, they are sort of walking away. So this is an example of things not being quite as they should be, even today. So there's a reminder for us. Looking now at keyboards, we can think of three principles for keyboard layouts, exemplified with a Chukchi, a Komi, and a Muncie keyboard here. So the first principle would be replace national letters, replace rare letters with national ones, like the Chukchi keyboard, so that C position, upper left, is replaced with K with a hook, because C isn't used in Chukchi. The other one is to have a new row, like for Komi, where you suddenly have 4 rows. And the third one will be to have a normal Russian keyboard, like in Muncie here, well, except the one eng, and then to have the national letters, the long vowels, via pressing the vowels for an additional second. So these are things that we are looking at. Spell checkers. There are 3 ways of doing a spell checker. You can make a list of words. You could make a list of stems pointing to suffixes. This was successfully done for Komi, for example. Or you could do it as a language model that takes care of the morphology. Nenets is a language complex enough to want such a thing. There is also a 4th way, the Google way, which is collect text and hope for the best. So this is, for example, this is a warning. This is an Inarisami text. The text contains 1 typo, and that is the first word of the 3rd row. You see that it has 2 I's. It should have only 1, like you can see on the 1st row. But Google doesn't notice that. Instead, Google says there are all kinds of errors there. But for example, the word raketist is correct in the middle row, but wrong down there. So this is a warning of what things will happen when we don't care. So our solution will be to make a language model, have a lexicon, a morphology model, and a morphophonology model, so that we are able to go, for example, for the North Sami word gusa, meaning cow, to gusa, which also means cow, but which is in the accusative. So this will be our way of doing it. And this language model will then have the lexicon, the morphology, and the morphophonology, and can be used for different practical programs with the help of the people there. And the important thing is that the green part of this would be the language specific things for each language, and the other colors, the yellow and the blue, will be common for each language, no, common for all languages. So the infrastructure we work on in Tromsø is free, open, has reuse, it's rule-based, it's rule-based. So areas that need this infrastructure are these. Languages from the circled areas are so complex that they need this technology. Languages outside can use it, but they can also do without. So most 2/3 of the world languages are within the circled areas. The Tromsø project is a part of the project that already has been presented, so I don't go into that. And the Tromsø sub-project is a language technology for circumpolar languages of Russia, concentrating upon what I call the Ripon languages. That's not the Republican ones. So with a keyboard project and the language models and spell checkers for some of the languages. This is more work. So a tentative list would be to look at Veps, Nenets, Muncie, Evenki, and Chukchi. Yes, so status for the project is that it actually hasn't quite started up. We have planned, but the financing and the size of the project is still undecided. And this also is the exact number of languages included. We will cooperate with colleagues in Helsinki as well as with the relevant speech communities. So stay tuned for more info as we know more. Thank you.
Thank you, Trond, for your very interesting presentation, and we are also very glad that we work together in our project. Now we continue, and I would like to give the floor to Vice President for Education, Native Languages of the Indigenous Peoples of the North, Siberia and Far East, Russian Association of Indigenous Peoples, Raipon, Nina Visalova. Nina Glebovna, please, the floor is yours.
Hello, dear participants. Can you hear me well?
Да, Нина Глебовна, слышно хорошо.
Да, видно ли мою
Презентацию видим, да.
Your presentation is visible too. So, dear friends, today we meet upon very important topic, native languages, and do they have chance for survival? This project is an Arctic Council project where Raipon is a leader. It's important to us, and Raipon does everything it can to engage more participants to this work from actual indigenous peoples, representatives from indigenous peoples. So we must we must do this work with more people from indigenous peoples, not just ourselves. I'd like to share with you, dear friends, the information that we organized a large educational project on digitalization, and this youth education project of Raipon is aimed at engaging more youth from indigenous peoples, raising their awareness about possible extinction of languages. Our project accords to our plan of events of Russia in the Arctic Council chairmanship. It works within the Arctic Council project of digitalization of linguistic culture heritage of indigenous people. I'd like to give a brief insight. Unfortunately, I don't have time. I'd like to talk about our event. We spent a lot of time preparing and organized this strategic session. And who took part? Those were representatives from the indigenous peoples who are IT users and also keepers of native languages and cultures. Those young people worked as a team on a strategic session on IT. And the most important thing that I noticed, what we've seen there, and what this project is good for, what it gives us, it unites the youth, it promotes preservation of languages, it gives the youth more insight into IT, its possibilities, and what's most important, we connect modern IT technologies and traditional knowledge of indigenous peoples of the North. And the mission of this work is creation of opportunity for the youth, and we raise awareness of this problem of language extinction. And most importantly, we employ most modern technologies to tackle this problem. We try to create knowledge with the youth about the new information technology that modern society has. And my personal experience, as I said, 23 young people worked on their ideas, and I noticed that the guys who are capable with working on internet platforms, creating content, 3D engines, video games. They also concerned about preserving native languages, and only after talking to activists who advocate preservation of languages, and they were not previously interested in this topic, and they became interested in this topic, and they believe that their effort can bring more into this process. They can help. We can integrate IT into culture, to education, to lifestyles of indigenous peoples. We talked digitalization to the indigenous peoples. And about that work, we also told them about the work that is being done currently by the state, by the activists. We were talking about how to use internet and IT technologies for this problem. As I said, platforms that we had on the session, those were education sessions, discussion platforms, project presentations, and on the strategic sessions turned into real projects. So currently, the guys are currently perfecting them and working on them to engage more IT specialists. They build good creative collectives, conglomerates, where they can use their knowledge. And one of the most large-scale parts of work were foresight sessions for IT guys. As a result, what do we have? We had good networking of IT specialists. People had found like-minded people to them. We promoted our ideas. We created the community of indigenous peoples. We have very young indigenous team that is confident with IT technologies, that are now willing to promote their ideas on different platforms. So, dear friends, I'd like to point out that looking at our young people working, this made me sure that our languages will come back to us through our youth. It's very important for us to engage more people from indigenous peoples. They have contemporary skills. They know how to motivate in the modern world in area of globalization. They can get to the young people and help us, the carriers of our native languages. They can help us to reorient to the young people. So young people can help older people, original keepers of language, to promote potential of our native languages. It's very important that our languages would become accessible to any societies, communities. So it's important for us in our joint project about digitalization of languages. So we need to engage more indigenous peoples to work. We have a lot to do still. We have very few people by now engaged into this work. I hope we'll have more communities in terms of linguistics and culture heritage to be engaged to this work. And at the end, I'd like to say that we need to understand that one teacher of a language today will not help the youth to master their language. Only by using modern technologies, modern knowledges, we can promote this potential and implement it fully. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Nina Glebovna, for this very interesting information about important work that RIPON is doing. This is very important, and I would like to also acknowledge your words about one issue, and would like to encourage all the participants of the project to use the principle nothing about us without us, and we have to involve in a meaningful way indigenous peoples, their representatives, and all this work should be done under the supervision of indigenous peoples organizations, permanent participants. Thank you, Nina Glebovna, and we continue. And I would like to give a floor back to Norway, to Mr. Anders Oskal, the Secretary General of the Association of World Reindeer Herders, Director of the International Center for Reindeer Husbandry, and would like to mention that these organizations are active partners of the project, and Anders will speak about food heritage of indigenous peoples. Please, Anders, the floor is yours.
Very good day to everyone. To share that book. Yes. So World Reindeer Herders have also supported from the outset. As Hjalmar of IC Greenland said yesterday, we cannot stress enough the need to preserve our cultures, languages, and heritage, mindful of the horizon of Arctic change before us. And the project is running now in the Arctic Council, and I would like to say that all the permanent participants have taken an active part in the project. We are very happy for that. And we have tried to provide a platform for youth to across boundaries. And I believe that it is precisely this which has been the recipe for our momentum, in that our youth have gained also national recognition for their work, for instance, with our cookbook from 2017. Across the north, this map shows the reindeer herding areas, and then far beyond just the herding, so all indigenous peoples in the Arctic. We've had a series of youth workshops. Notably, we've also used different methods and approaches for documenting traditional indigenous knowledge, which may be of use for our collaboration ahead. And also providing some mechanisms for them to develop their own societies. We've done food innovation leadership programs with Nord University, including NEFU, training of leaders with Harvard University, Kennedy School of Government. And so we try to work building the competence, but also the confidence of our youth to articulate. We've also taken an engagement to as a potential market where coming out soon to be used for teaching our as well as Harvard School students. Food lab now is anchored in an Arctic strategy as a concrete contribution to the Arctic collaboration in the Arctic. And we're in a traditional. So we ourselves an Arctic indigenous peoples in a food lab, which I will now briefly present. What is it? Well, it's a laboratory, but also kitchen, but it's also integrated large lavo, a large nomadic tent. So on the one hand, we have a high-tech kitchen with aluminum and steel, nomadic tent. The different worlds is what would provide for a possible innovation, also resilience of our communities. And we've also entered a cooperation with Yakuza, maybe that yes, it's the final and we mark with bronze to awareness of also our food systems with knowledge. Oh, it looks like we have, and as you can see, it's full. Transported easily. Set up food off. We will so in allowing the campus with it for documentation purposes. Interesting. To put our nomadic indigenous into action, engaging food.
Так, связь очень плохая, плохо слышно.
Unfortunately, the connection is very bad. We almost cannot hear you.
Okay. Maybe you see this is my conclusion that art a much larger role in a post-Arctic in security and recovery for our cities and communities. And we now have to do it, to work together for youth to take on the task of documenting their own heritage also means. Thank you very much.
Спасибо большое, Оскар. за нашу совместную
Thank you very much for our joint work, Anders. And we continue our work. And I would like to give the floor to Sergei Pilipenko, Deputy Vice Rector for International Affairs, Institute for Advanced Research and Digital Solutions in the field of science and education. Please, Sergei.
Hello, dear guests. I'm very glad to see you all here. My thanks to organizers for inviting me to the third Northern Sustainable Development Forum. From my side, as chair for the Fund of Preservation Cultural, I'll talk more about preservation of language space. And before I talk about our results, I'd like to start with the wider frame and just touch questions connected to sorry, my presentation doesn't work yet. So first of all, these are goals of state politics of Russia in the Arctic. I'll just touch those of them that accords to the context that we're talking about. First of all, this is improving life quality in the Arctic and protection of traditional habitat and traditional lifestyle of indigenous peoples. One of the most important tasks is to maintain sustainability of indigenous peoples of the North and adaptation to climate change. To reach these goals, we need to have potential of a size that we need. This is a sum of all sustainable development resources that can answer all the threats and challenges that we're facing. So we need to have this control system that is adequately, quickly responding to challenges. This is demographic potential, territory, transport infrastructure, ethnocultural, language diversity. Especially the last one, I'd like to talk about it as that this has geopolitical potential because they reside strategic regions of Russia, but they also created a unique culture, collective values that are at the core of indigenous people's culture, freedom. They have these high requirements for good life quality. So this is geopolitical responsibility of Russia. And strategic decisions of Russia in the Arctic must include analysis of decisions yet to be taken. Major directions of state politics in response to problems of indigenous peoples of the North. I'd like to point out preservation of traditional lifestyle and improvement of accessibility to educational services to indigenous peoples. From the other side, please look at President's decree and state regulation in terms of digitalization. So in our report, we'll try to link these two. In the presidential decree about national goals of Russia's development before 2030, among others, stated is digital transformation and creation of reaching of digital maturity of key economics and social sphere areas.
Оцениваются не только регионы, но и, собственно говоря,
By this valued by this maturity are not only regions but also educational facilities.
Уровень цифрового развития нам необходимо понять.
We need to understand the level. How can we measure current level of digital maturity and the one that we want to reach? These 36 parameters currently we use for measuring business efficiency, state efficiency. I will not stop too much on these two. I'd like to direct your attention to the next one. There is a national project Culture. It's a federal project. It's a part of this project is dedicated for digitalization of culture. This includes online streams of events, creation of virtual concert halls, multimedia guides, quick library, and digitalization of all film material. One example of how we implement this strategy, you can see in strategy for transformation of economics and social sphere in Yakutia, you see, and in culture, we state how we implement this project. If we look on variety of digital tools that we implement now or plan to implement, I've been talking about virtual concert halls, multimedia guides, online courses on local languages and stuff like that. Digital maturity of language and cultural space is very important to understand where we are right now. So we need to develop and implement different metrics. Since in other areas of economy we already use that, we can look at it kind of the same way in different languages. This is support of interesting content, variety of channels for forms of and types of content, projects that were implemented by the fund in 2020-21. We supported online course for Yukager language, same for Khanty-Mansi language. In 2021, we supported development of methodic online school on actual technologies for indigenous peoples' languages, and education multimedia book. In 2021, more projects are reviewed for further implementations. You can see these projects currently being reviewed. For example, support to young opinion leaders, ethnobloggers who blog their own languages, because all the youth right now, all in digital areas. We will promote video materials in social networks like YouTube or TikTok, educational applications like iSpring Kahoot for indigenous lexicon, and creation of audio podcasts on history of region. As Anatoly Vasilyevich taught earlier, last week on the conference, we discussed a question of creating a consortium for implementation of this project of digitalization of linguistic and cultural heritage. Anatoly Vasilyevich presented, for core educational facilities that are willing to take part in this consortium. And we see that we can implement this project with what we have right now. Other participants were Ministry for Science Education, Federal Agency on Nationalities, Ministry of Education in Russia, and Fund of Preservation of Native Languages of Russia. So any others can also join, because this is very complicated. We've even seen in different presentations even today that we see one region made this online course, other project done this, the project done that. But we can integrate this all in a sort of an internet form of interaction to preserve culture and language heritage. This can actually help to save our resources and come to joint results together. Thank you very much, and I hope everything's gonna work. Thank you very much. I'm glad you understand that we all understand that we need to integrate, and this we talked on the Nuremberg conference. And the floor now goes to Sofia Unuru. It's a Deputy Rector for Regional Relations, Herzen State Pedagogical University of Russia.
Здравствуйте, уважаемые участники.
Hello, dear participants of the seminar. We continue talking about digitalization. We started it back in Nuremberg. It was a very interesting trip. We've seen how this language lives, how the culture lives, and how the reindeer are herded. And we saw some archives that the locals are keeping, starting from the 1990s. And we have the technology that could help to digitalize everything. And we decided with all our northern community to start finally implementing it. And my uncle told me that he recorded an audio tape of our relative, a shaman. And when he did it, the shaman jumped and said, "Oh no, what are you doing? You just stole my song." So probably right now the times have changed. People are welcoming and embracing digital technologies, and we need to use this opportunity to teach younger generations, to preserve, to raise awareness, to advocate, to promote. And I would like to thank the Northeastern Federal University and Mr. Zhozhikov personally for inviting our university to join the project. Your representatives came to visit us in St. Petersburg, and it is impressive how well you are using already the technologies to digitalize the heritage. And the idea was to involve students in digitalizing different objects of material culture in different regions, because this year we have a lot of students, 75 people, indigenous students in bachelor and master's programs. And of course, this is a beautiful idea to give them these technologies so that they can use them back home or during their field work. And thus they can contribute to this large-scale project, because yes, this is a huge task. We'll need to do a lot. and we need to act as a consortium. Of course, we should realize that people who will be digitalizing, these people should be specially trained, experts in languages and cultures. And that's why I want to briefly tell you about what do we do in our Herzen Institute of the Peoples of the North, where we train experts in languages and cultures. It's a structural division of the university, of St. Petersburg Teachers University. We're celebrating the anniversary this year, and we are teaching over 20 languages, and teachers are native speakers, authors of books on native languages. In the institute, we offer different programs of bachelors, of ethnophilology, native language and literature of indigenous peoples, also Russian language and historical education. We also have master's programs and postgraduate programs. The students can try themselves in different domains like creativity, science, linguistic projects. Our graduates are employed in schools and colleges all around Russia, in cultural centers, museums, NGOs, and etc. That's why it was very nice to see among organizers of this forum our graduates. The intelligentsia of the indigenous peoples, the assets, human assets are, most of them are graduates of our institute. The improving of quality of education of indigenous peoples of the North is a task at the state level. And recently we've been facing different problems, and these problems are worded to the government of the Russian Federation. And after one of such meetings, the President of Russia produced these instructions, and there was a roadmap developed on how to support education in indigenous languages. Our institute undertook a monitoring of the quality of education in the native languages. We received a lot of information. We still have to analyze a lot of it and try to figure out what professionals are needed where. And we plan to update our institute as well. We want to develop our infrastructure and our work. We also have a special scheme of how the quotas are distributed. The quotas for higher education for indigenous students. We are now working on it to make it more detailed and more effective, efficient. Nobody except for the companies or agencies who sponsor the education can take up their places. It means that these indigenous students can apply, can enroll almost without any exams. And I think it's a big step in our efforts. And again, here we have a more large-scale question. It's the development of education of the indigenous peoples of the North as a whole. We will be having a lot of events under the chairmanship of Russia in the Arctic Council, the International Decade of Indigenous Languages. And we are trying to contribute to all of these initiatives, events, and there are programs of economical support for indigenous peoples developed by Human Development Agency of Russia. We also contributed to their plans for training personnel for Arctic development. Again, we discussed quotas for those professions, jobs needed in northern communities, like nomadic teachers, nomadic school teachers. So, very briefly, the language and cultures of indigenous peoples are always in focus of many agencies at the state level of the Russian Federation. There are commissions, ministries, agencies, and this year a lot of efforts have been done to overcome the crisis, and hopefully we'll see some results soon. There will be also financial support for students, such as scholarships for indigenous students, 10,000 rubles monthly. And regions also have their own support measures, so students are encouraged to study in such a beautiful city as St. Petersburg. Thank you, Sofia. The participation of this institute in our project is a very good thing for us to have such a partner. And the thing that we're planning a consortium, I think it will be a very good idea too. Next, Vyacheslav Shadrin. Is he here? A researcher of the Department of History and Arctic Research, Institute of Humanitarian Research and Indigenous Peoples Issues. Please, Vyacheslav.
Здравствуйте, уважаемые друзья. Я сегодня хотел бы вас познакомить с одним проектом, который реализуется Фондом поддержки культур народов Сибири. Руководителем этого фонда является Ирина. Он давно взаимодействует с активом коренных народов, проживающих в Сибири. Реализует очень много проектов, направленных на поддержку коренных народов Севера.
His new project is about preserving traditional knowledge of indigenous peoples of the North in climate change conditions. The project is implemented in 4 Russian regions: Khanty-Mansiysk, Yakutia, Chukotka, and Kamchatka. Methodologically, the main part of work of this project is writing interviews with native language carriers of different peoples. And in this interview, they also gather information about nature use, about their lifestyle condition. And I'd like to highlight that this interview is held on their own indigenous languages. Also, questions include issues related to climate change. So the project is dedicated not only on fixating on indigenous language, but also to how indigenous people treat their own ways of using nature, of living their lifestyle, and of measures to be taken to keep going. I took part in this project of interviewing Yukagirs, and in March this year I went to Nizhny region of Sakha Republic, and I could write 12 I could talk to 12 Yukagir people on the language, and working with Yukagir language carriers was very interesting and this drawn very complicated situation, as we know that there's very few carriers of the language today. We sort of had this good picture from surveys that like 300 people still living and talking their languages, but in reality we found out that the people who could freely talk their language and describe themselves, it turned out that there's very small amount of people who could talk their languages. So I'd say only 12 people could do this. We hope to use this interview to find out more people, maybe find all people who can freely talk their language. And I think if we do this, we will only find about 20-25 people who will speak Yukagir good enough. So this calls for desperate measures. Documenting this fixation of the language is, especially with Tundra language, it turned out as less studied as compared to the forest language, because it was more documented in the past, more by, for example, Lyubov Nikolaevna Zhukova, who did this project on fixating to local languages. So we find out there's less people speak the language than we thought.
Самого юкагирского народа, это вот братья Куриловны, как раз и представляют тундренный юкагирский язык.
For example, these brothers we talked to will represent the Yukagir language, and from people who are confident users of Yukagir language, there was just one woman younger than 45 years old, and all the others recorded people were older than 65. So this says that we really need to change and find new ways of revitalization and preservation of our native languages, and all of the work today that we do. This digitalization of linguistic culture heritage is one of the tools that will certainly be dedicated on this problem. And we will keep working in this direction and find for other tools that we could use to more actively engage young people into this process of preservation of the language. Thank you very much. Thank you, Vyacheslav Ivanovich. The floor goes to Chernyshyova Svetlana Leonidovna, Associate Professor of Department of Ethnocultural Studies. Please.
Hello, colleagues. Please allow me to share my screen. Can you see it?
Коллеги, пожалуйста, ответьте. Видно ли мою презентацию?
Нет, не видно. А вот сейчас появилась.
Ага, все появилось, да? Спасибо большое. Сейчас я прошу прощения, мне приходится выходить из двух носителей. Значит, тема моего выступления — информационные технологии и этнокультура. Как раз я хотела бы обострить свое
And I would like to point your attention to what problems and prospects of development we have in this domain. And first of all, when we talk about developing of ICT, we see that their mainstreaming and their influence on everyday life of indigenous people, of course, it's one of the strategic resources and one of the characteristics.
Не видно презентацию? Коллеги, помогите, пожалуйста, что мне нужно для этого сделать. Так,
Please try to share your screen again.
Вот, извините, вот так вот, да? Я так понимаю. Правильно, все видно теперь?
Can you see it now?
Теперь видно?
Все хорошо, нормально.
Yes.
Хорошо, спасибо, извините, пожалуйста.
Thank you.
И как раз осмысление негативных вредных последствий и новых возможностей
realizing of negative impacts and new opportunities is a very important task to build future-proof ways of development and preservation of ethnic cultures. ICT are the feature of modern era, and they cannot only change the ways we access and store information, but they also influence the knowledge itself and how we use them. The informational cultural space in the northern regions is a very complex structure of dissemination of information and traditions, creativity, and the domain of functioning of cultural values and languages. And among these information technologies that represent images of ethnic cultures, we can single out both traditional and modern types. Traditional ones are mass media, and we understand that the role of cultural representation of indigenous people of Russia in modern media is very crucial because they have unlimited resources, possibilities, and have their own tools to represent cultural aspects of indigenous peoples, raising awareness about these problems and the ideas of the need to preserve these cultures. There are some new information technologies, and one of the most effective are internet and network technologies. Thanks to internet, now we have a lot more possibilities as for mass media as well. This ethnic mass media especially. A special role in informatization of ethnic culture is played by websites, e-libraries, internet maps and atlases. And one of the good examples is Evengus website. It has a lot of information about Evenki language and culture for basic level. It is an online resource. Some other very nice example is Chuklang site. Here you see some materials on grammatical description of Anguem type of Chukchi language. They have a corpus of language and songs, etc. And they are all synchronized with audio. Another positive example of Sami culture representation is the Kola North e-library, which accumulates information about culture, language, history of the Sami people. And this resource is an open portal where anyone can access e-copies of documents as well. Another type of resource is the educational resource, the multilingual portal, cyberspace of native language. It's about peoples that live in Khabarovsk territory. Implementation of this project is done together with educational organizations that work in this domain. One of the most popular directions of development of IT technologies for preservation of tangible and intangible heritage is the project of creating an interactive map and atlas. The Raipon is included in this work. It will be a multi-layered database about life and cultures of indigenous peoples. It will include 3 layers: ethnopolitical, ethno-anthropological, and linguistic. And you can see the main goal of the project here. Another example of representation is the most popular type of technology, like multimedia technology. For example, creating cartoons for language learners and cultural learners. This is a series of cartoons about the Even people. It was done by Magadan Museum. We also have some cartoons in Nivki language, in one of the dialects as well. And we can see a lot of animation in Web's language. Recently, we see more and more need to update the education, to make it relevant. And this is about electronic textbooks, guidebooks, unfortunately, time frames. Yes, I will mention that many regions have are already practicing this. At the last forum, there was one project in Muncie region. And masterclasses in YouTube are another very efficient tool. And a mobile app called Ayana is a very exciting project of automated translation. But there are some problems. I will mention them briefly. First of all, we need to understand that there is a generation gap, and usually sometimes everything becomes
недостоверность предоставляемой информации, стремление к упрощению информации,
too simplified or becomes too classical, not related to real life. So there are many problems that we should keep in mind when we work with such new technologies. Thank you. Thank you for this exciting presentation. Unfortunately, we have to stick to time frames. Please try to keep within 5, maximum 7 minutes. Thank you. Next one, Maria Karnilova, the director of Museum of Music and Folklore of Peoples of Yakutia. Please.
Dear friends, good day.
Добрый день еще раз, коллеги.
Dear colleagues,
Тема моего выступления о сотрудничестве с кафедрой ЮНЕСКО
is cooperation with UNESCO project. I'll do a bit of corrections there. I want to talk about our museum briefly. There will be a video without sound about the works that we conduct with indigenous peoples of Yakutia. In 1989, this museum was started as the only museum in the world of folklore and music of Yakutia. This was founded by Aisa Petrovna Reshetnikova. So recently, it's been 30 years since this museum has been transformed into a Republican museum. So currently, it's a keeper of music and folklore heritage and promotion of traditional knowledge of indigenous cultures as oral and intangible heritage. Museum has constant exposition of artifacts of Yakutian indigenous peoples, ways of their lifestyle. It has all the information about major rituals, lifestyle events, and everything. We have reconstructed calendar festivals and holidays. For example, meeting the sun and Tundra holiday Bakaldin. This holiday Bakaldin, for example, is held in different even countries where events reside. Our activities, I will not talk about all of them, of what we do, in which conferences were held, which year. Some of the names for conferences were musical ethnography of Tungus peoples, International Conference on Folklore of Polynesia, Asian indigenous peoples. That was in 2019, held in Yuzhno-Sakhalin city. Since 2005, museum is implementing the long-term project of memoirs of major knowledgeable people, language keepers. So currently we have about 200 to 230 video portraits. As video fixation of events that we held through the years. Creation of video exhibition pieces we created. On the video is Aisa Petrovna, the creator of museum, says that the knowledge is not just visible, it's also audible. It also can be put as artifacts. So the visitors of the museum would not just see, they could touch and hear the heritage that the museum is all about. So far, only this museum provides this kind of opportunity. So main goal also was to transform standard lectures into video material for the museum, so people could also watch animated musical films or video classes as exhibition pieces. And in terms of the indigenous peoples of Yakutia, I'll briefly describe about the first peoples that created the earth. For example, a film on the screen. We also made short cartoons visible on the screen. Finally, with the indigenous peoples, we premiered Yukagir epos of Edelweiss. It was created with the help of the Republican government. These videos are also applicable to educational purposes for students in schools. School students also go with this on different conferences, festivals. We also have a program as Road to the Beauty, talking about the nomadic museum. We, for the next year, for the 100th anniversary of Yakutian Republic, we are planning to hold these conferences. We've been invited to Kamchatka for
международного проекта Арктического совета цифровизации языкового и культурного наследия коренных народов Арктики для пополнения портала видеоматериалами передал вышеперечисленные музейные видеоэкспонаты.
We've transferred this video material for expansion of our portal. The portal that we've been talking about for the last couple of days. We also work on creating video exponents, and we assure you that these will be on our portal. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your report. We have 6 more presentations to go. We will not do a break. So the word goes to Vasiliev Sergei Efimovich, lead engineer of Institute of Physics and Technology, SNIFU.
Hello, dear colleagues. We live in a multi-dimensional world where every event and process, object, subject are connected to each other with very complex links. That is why when we mean culture, folklore, material culture, we need to look at it together. Only in this way we can obtain a full and a true information. For example, when we look at some people or ethnicity, we in one way or another understand that this is spatial environment that forms the material world of that people, their language. And when we collect information about some subject, besides all the information resources that exist, we need to use what we can call a coordinate system, which is 3D information. When we talk about a flat picture, it does not allow you to obtain even visual information how the object looks from all the sides. So what I'm speaking about are the technologies such as 3D scanning, modeling, 3D photographs, full dome panoramas, virtual 3D tours, for example, in museums and other historical places, cultural places. Of course, augmented reality, virtual reality, and GIS technologies, geographical information systems. I will just mention 3D technologies in more detail. We can obtain information not only about the shape, the outer shape of an object, for example, this Choron vessel, but micro-relief of surface also matters. In this way, we create quite an accurate digital copy of an object, which will allow us, using modern equipment, to make the same object, a copy of it. We can calculate dimensions, angles, curves. This objective information is needed for researcher as well as for the craftsperson who will be creating an object. For example, a researcher wants to study an object which is located somewhere far away, but you can take the 3D model and multi-frame photos, dome panoramas, so we can enhance access to these objects. This is augmented reality demonstration, how it works in our case. This project is called 3D Rarities of Yakutia, using special marks. We can see this object and look even inside it. So 3D Yakutia Rarities is our project. There is a 3D Yakutia.ru site, and together with other regions we used some grants to find some people in these regions like Chukotka and Magadan who are willing to join us and to contribute to our projects there. These are just some examples. Working with fur, of course, is very difficult because there is no even surface like in case with wooden objects. There are not very many material culture objects of nomadic peoples in our museums. Why? Because one of the reasons is that nomadic peoples cannot take old stuff with them, and that's why when you look at old pictures and compare it to newly made clothes, You can see some details from old ones, so they are being always recycled. That's why we don't have many of them. But anyway, we can use 3D technologies. We have a vast world experience. For example, Smithsonian Institution, who created a special institution, and they have a very high-res 3D exhibits. Here on the top, it's the mask or hat used by clean kids for their ceremonies in the early 20th century. This is an exhibit of the museum, and using modern technologies, they recreated it from the appropriate type of wood. They recreated almost an accurate copy, and this object is being used in actual ceremony. Cultural event. So that's a very big achievement by the museum. They not just keep this object, they recreated it and they gave it back to people into their cultural context. Alaska museums also use these technologies, and all of them are very accessible, are easy to use, and using these technologies with the use of these 3D objects, you can create them anywhere, at home even. So when we cooperate with all kinds of different organizations, for example, the Herzen Teachers University, we recently agreed to cooperate because their students are a very valuable asset. Thank you, Sergey, for this beautiful presentation. He is our 3D expert, and we will be looking forward for his further contribution. Next one is Alexander Komissarov, Deputy Director of Department of Subsoil Use and Natural Resources of Muncie Autonomous Okrug.
Thank you very much. Good day, dear colleagues. Thank you. The project of IT reindeer camp started in 2018. It's dedicated so to make able the indigenous reindeer herders living in remote areas to have opportunity to access state e-services and to take part in Russia's life, to vote easily. So we decided to implement this project in reindeer herding camps.
На территории автономного округа у нас зарегистрировано 475
we have 475 traditional land use territories. On these territories, there are about 5,000 people who are indigenous peoples of the north. Because these land use territories are very remote, its citizens cannot access modern communications. For example, state e-services, education services, medical services, in terms of job search. Access to internet because of our project. Now more than 675 families have access to the internet. Majority who are living traditional lifestyle. For that, we installed 49 access points in 7 municipalities. I would like to know this project is fully funded by mining companies that work in our region: Lukoil, Rosneft, Surgutneftegas. All the financing goes through Saving Yugra NGO. And this organization finances and makes schemes where to install connection points. We use 2 types of internet connection devices. Closer ones, we use technology of strengthening of cellular signals. Speed reaches up to 40 megabits per second. On more remote areas, we use technology of satellite connection. So this technology has speed of 12 megabits per second. So this project allowed indigenous peoples to access internet services without leaving their residences. So we have increase of services available to them to 41%. We opened also a camp school and kindergarten that operates using our technology. Currently, we have 18 children from 11 families residing in reindeer camps. And we are supported by Gertsen Institute. The programs are developed by this institute. In perspective, for residents living in land-use traditional areas, we want to introduce telemedicine. Currently, in remote areas and in traditional land-use territories, there is 1 households with telemedicine complexes installed. There are 23 mobile medical brigades to access remote areas as well. In terms of social protection of residents, we introduce wider access to e-services. With this, we inform residents of traditional land uses areas with measures of social support. For example, accessing all kinds of state e-services, job search, requesting for social support. Apart from that, I'd like to say that creation of these IT camps in remote areas is not a door, it's more like a gate that people in remote areas could access all the big internet data that the other Russian residents enjoy. And another positive effect from IT camps are located in same areas where mining industry works too. It's no secret that these areas are also populated with mining companies, and sometimes we have incidents related to mining industry. And since we've built this system of IT camps, we start getting more messages from these remote residents when mining companies damage in the environment. We get quicker message from about any incidents happening. And also, one of the graduates from Gerson Institute has developed a mobile translating app for smartphones. It translates Muncie language into Russian. So this app is currently being developed, and we sponsor the fund, and so he's able to go on with this project. We hope that when this translating app will be finished, we on one of the future conferences, we will present it and recommend it for using maybe in 4 different languages too, indigenous languages. Yes, thank you very much. This is very practical experience about getting funded, practical implementation. Thank you. The word goes to Zhukova Lyudmila Nikolaevna, senior researcher.
I recorded my presentation, so please turn it on. No sound. Unfortunately, there is no sound for interpreter. And here we see the chair of the Council of the Elders, Vyacheslav Shadrin, together with members of Kolymchanka ensemble. Also, you can see the Yukagir elders. The text is about the history of tundra and forest Yukagirs. Once they used to inhabit the entire territory of the Republic, but then they ended up in the Arctic territory. Yuhilson is the forefather of Yukagir studies, and many researchers are based on his works, including our portal. Then we show the map of where Yukagir people live. Magadan, Yakutia, Chukotka. The main animal that Yukagir hunt, you can see the Nilemne community and photos of the elders from there. They are preparing the elk and the dog breeding types of homes, ancient homes, modern homes, as well as clothes. And then we have separate sections. First one is scientists who studied Yukagir culture. So first one is Yehilson. We have a photo and then short information and publications. If you click on the researcher's photo, you can see more detailed information. So this is the principle of how all the pages for researchers work. Next section is the history of the peoples, of the Yukagir people. Here we have archaeological materials, Paleolith, Neolithic Age, Iron Age, Stone Age, with artifacts. Then the 19th century, the early 20th century, and modern times. dating photos dating back to 1990s. Next section, type of economy. Here we tell about fishery, reindeer herding, dog breeding, gathering, hunting. So let's click on fishing. So each section is built by a territory like forest yucca gears and tundra yucca gears. Right now, let's look at fishery of forest yucca gears. Some old photos, some new photos showing different fishing devices. Next section is hunting. Again, we have here forest yucca gears, main animals. It was moose, also depicted on the rock paintings. Then reindeer herding. Tundra yucca gears are engaged in reindeer herding nowadays. Key facts. Then dog breeding. The dogs were domesticated in Paleolithic age, and rock paintings reflect some scenes of hunting with dogs already. And the dogs have straight tails, not curly ones like dogs. So we also provide some modern-day information. Then winter transportation tools like skis, skis with fur and skis without fur that were used for different snow conditions. This is the talking alphabets of forest yucca gears, compiled by Panna Yegorova and Ms. Demina. This is how it sounds.
Arnuyak, arnuyak, elellu de elellu, пайпелеменгон эренуннуй.
Теперь по тундровым yucca gears. And then we go to tundra yucca gears. These materials were done by Ms. Lukina, Mr. Shadrin, Mr. Kurilov, a yucca gear musician and singer. Let's see what is Russian yucca gear phrasebook. It has over 20 topics for different situations. I want to learn yucca gear language. Next section, the vocabulary of words by alphabets, and in the end we have the list of references. We started working on the portal in 2021, and we are still continuing our work on this yucca gear language portal. Thank you. And this might be a model to be used for other ethnicities as well. We can discuss it later. And next one is Maya Makarova, Director of Center for the Promotion of Languages and Cultures of the Ob-Ugric Peoples.
Включите презентацию, пожалуйста.
Please turn my presentation on.
Ну, пока презентация включается, позвольте мне начать.
While my presentation is being turned on, I'll start. Hello, I'd like to tell about our experience on promoting cultural heritage of Muncie peoples. Digitalization, in order to digitalization to work for well-being of indigenous peoples, it's incredibly important to translate indigenous peoples, is that the peoples themselves will use the language, and especially important if children would use it. Now, please, I need to presentation. Today, representatives from UGRA say that there is a lot being done in UGRA to create information community that not only has projects on culture, but also target-oriented state programs. And I'd like not to talk about program events. As you can see, they're already successful and highly efficient. I think it's very important to show small private initiatives that are socially important, because ideas turn into projects that expand the role of Muncie language online. Let's move to results now.
Презентацию дали. Да, я вот, да. Ну, остановлюсь уже на этом слайде.
So I'll stop on this slide.
Евдокия Андреевна Немысова, которая
Evdokia Andreeva Nemysova, shown on this slide, on one of the forums on preserving traditional culture and language, she said this phrase: "We became interesting to ourselves," and this is really this way now. And I'd like to present the experience of a small private initiative that not only promotes Muncie language, but also develops Muncie language in online platforms. The content that is being developed by carriers of Muncie language is presented mostly in network communities. It's also accessible, of course, to those who is subscribed to authors of these information resources or use internet. So this is example how children get involved in these projects on Muncie language. In network communities, for example, users online, they use online gift cards. So we created, they created these online cards on native language. And if we show children how to do something like this, to give him the tools, the result will not, you will not wait long for the result. And the children got involved and they used their experience they acquired in creating these cards and little videos, and they not only create these little videos, but they also took part in our project talking about our capital in Muncie language. Also, the participants of this project became authors of different online content, for example, on YouTube, on Muncie language. So school kids blog about Muncie language online on YouTube. So this initiative took us from creating small gift cards to a YouTube channel. Another interesting project is a Muncie language activist. For example, this activist is a rap performer who performs rap on Muncie language. And he has this interesting channel that presents different videos and movies that he discusses on Muncie language, these movies. And it's very interesting because he affects minds and opinions of school kids, because he is very well known with the youth. He's a rapper, he's a blogger who talks about films too. Another experience of activists are comic books on Muncie language. And everyone knows that northern children are very good at drawing. So often they create these comic books, and they like not to just draw, but to create comic books on specific topics. This led him to creation of a contest of comic books on native language. Today we talked about one happy result of a project. For example, this online translator from Muncie language. It took a long time to finish.
Разговорники на мансийском, на хантыйском языке создаются у нас очень часто. Перед вами вот на одном.
You can see that online translators are created pretty often. It was also made by was created as a result of a school project where school kids collected Muncie words from older people, and they created this electronic translating app. This was all fully done, collected, sounded, recorded by school kids. So this all led to creation of this large database of Muncie language. It has about 5,000 words in Muncie language. This translator is adapted to any mobile device, Android. Currently, it's on its final stages. It's being optimized for better use, and we're sure it will be ready soon. Another interesting project, it's a private initiative of a mother who was concerned about her child who doesn't know Muncie language, and to teach him, she started to create these videos. And this project was called 5 Words on Muncie. And this led to creation of an online course of Muncie language. It's called 16 Minutes of Muncie. It has 16 lessons, each composing of 2 short videos, and it includes a plain video course for practicing. Another private initiative here, very important to us who know Muncie language, as there's less and less people who know Muncie language perfectly. So to save sound of Muncie language, they created an audiobook, Motroif, on Muncie language. So this audiobook presents correct way of pronouncing Muncie words. This book was implemented as a part of a bigger project, as a part of Toruma project. As a result, the Literature Club of Yugrama works in Toruma part. They already recorded 7 books, as well as Muncie language and Russian as well, all done inside this project. So now we can see that Muncie language in the world, in the digital world, is presented quite broadly, and this is very good. but there are also issues that need to be addressed. For example, today this internet presents a lot of information about any culture, and this culture of access to information can lead to wrong understanding of cultures, as it can be used very freely. And I'm almost finished, I'm sorry. To withstand to challenges of wrong appreciation of culture, we could tackle with project like a portal that would have all the correct way of presenting information, that would have this content from bloggers who would stream themselves only in online communities. So by this we will need to promote them and give them stage for their knowledge to present what they do. And this could also become a platform for cooperation between people of different regions. Thank you very much. Thank you, Maya Efimovna. You got it very right. Every region has its own capabilities, and when we got this flag of Arctic Council and all these opportunities, we could get more financing locally. Maybe our consortium could join. I think this could have been great if we could get a support like this. So the word goes to Zamorshikova Lyudmila, Deputy Head of NIFU Arctic Linguistic Ecology Laboratory, Professor, Institute of Modern Languages and International Studies.
Please, Lyudmila.
Появился звук, да?
Do we have sound? Yes.
Добрый вечер, участники.
Hello, dear participants of this very useful event. Should I turn on my presentation or you?
Сейчас включат, сказали.
Хорошо, хорошо.
Okay, I will start. It's a very timely dialogue, I must say, and as a participant of large scientific projects, I heard a lot of interesting things and now met a lot of interesting people. And maybe it will be useful for the future of our project. Since 2021, we started working within a large Russian project, which is called a mega grant, on the topic of preserving linguistic and cultural diversity and sustainable development of the Arctic and subarctic of Russia. And under this project, we created a large international laboratory. It will be the future leader in studying linguistic processes. In scientific terms, these studies are called Linguistic Ecology studies. The leader is the Doctor of Linguistics from Chicago University, Lenore Grenoble. We're launching a laboratory, and the main foundation method-wise is the linguistic ecology. It's interdisciplinary research of languages, cultures and social environment of their functioning as an indicator of sustainable development of a territory and the basis of well-being of an ethnicity as well as multi-ethnic society. And within the framework of implementation, we want to, first of all, launch a school with a lot of young researchers, indigenous ECRs who know the language, who know all the problems, who know the vital things about their lands and what is happening there, and what is the future for those territories. And besides linguistic problems, linguistic ecology embraces other problems. But we will address other issues such as linguistic shifts, language policies, linguistic programs, barriers, and what is the environment where the language lives, what are the contact zones. We know that the territories are being industrially developed, there is intensive migration, urbanization, everything influences linguistic contacts and humanitarian contacts. All these processes are very interesting and will be studied not only linguistically, but also by methods of social linguistics, ethnography, history, geography. We're planning to create GIS maps, interactive maps, because these contact lines are not the same all the time, they're changing, and the map of languages will be changing. The methods are different, as I have mentioned already. And we expect to create not only recommendations, but also research outcomes of what is occurring in the languages right now. What are the interactions? What are the factors that can influence languages? What is the interference? Right now we have an urgent problem that smaller children are losing their language, especially in the conditions of pandemic. They just sit at home and they consume a lot of YouTube, internet content, TikTok content, and this really greatly affects the loss of children, loss of language in young children. So when we start some joint events with linguistic activists, academia, we should pay attention to this problem too. This is our expedition. Look at what beautiful landscapes we have in summer. We stand on ice. It's the end of summer, and we are wearing all our warm clothes to travel in the Arctic districts. It's very interesting to work in the field, but for us, digitalization is a tool to preserve and then to study the material. So this is briefly it about our project. Thank you. Thank you, Ludmila. We hope for cooperation with our consortium. Of course. And the next speaker is Irina Aldebareva, head of the Service Department of National Library of Yamal-Nenets Autonomous District. Please. Are you here, Irina? Can you hear me?
Начинайте, пожалуйста.
Добрый день. Скажите,
You can,
пожалуйста, видно
you
мою
can start.
презентацию? Презентацию мою видно?
Can you see my presentation?
Есть.
Yes.
Все, добрый день, уважаемые участники. У нас день, у вас уже вечер. Уважаемые участники семинара. Я приветствую вас из столицы Ямало-Ненецкого автономного округа.
From Yamal capital Salihard. The city is located on a polar circle. It's also called to Gate to the Arctic. I work in Yamal National Library of Yamal. We collect and preserve and popularize information about our unique region. Special place in our fund that we have is, of course, literature on Nenets, Selkup, and other indigenous languages. We promote our authors, our resources, and other pieces of literature. We also hold literature meetings. We present district festivals, history of Yamal literature. In 2020, to celebrate the 90 years of Yamal, we made a comic book that represents history of. This comic book I want to show you. This cannot maybe talk to everyone with this comic book, but using our opportunities as a library, we can reach more, and with modern requirements of modern world, when users are used to get all the information with one click, and in this world, working library the old ways is very archaic, so we try to make our resources available online. Creation of this website was very hard. Special attention was paid to a concept and structure of the potential website. It's called a literature map of Yamal-Хорей. Хорей for nomadic peoples is a symbol of moving forward. This is a 3-meter wood pole that a reindeer herder directs the way he wants to go. So this represents moving forward. And our concept is very simple, usable to anyone online. We split it into categories, as you can see, into different categories for users. So it would be interesting to school kids, for researchers, for older people, different topics as well. On the main page, a user can see actual news from literature life of Yamal, can see constantly updating infographics. So today we have about 18 gigabytes of information. This is more than 9,000 pieces. And among them is about 630 stories on ethnic languages. On main page, there is a history available interactively. So you can see how a herder learns to herd reindeer as a representation of beginning of ethnic literature. So here a user can learn history starting from the earliest attempts to the modern ones. Author search is also available in alphabetic way and geographical. Also, you can search authors by their municipalities. It also contains bibliography for authors, has a picture if it's available. Some of the pages have audio recordings of their writings. I'd like to note that audio and video recorded on indigenous languages is a unique opportunity to listen how certain legend or a story sounds on an original language. Our resource is unique also because of the literature section that contains electronic versions of stories of our authors. A user can download, everyone could download any story one likes. And for further notice, section contains literature awards and children creative unions. It's also adapted to people for handicapped people. We also developed a mobile version of the portal, accessible for smartphone, for those who use smartphones for their daily internet search. Our resource is constantly moving, and from our richest fund of literature, we constantly update our platform with electronic versions of the stories. And for the next step of our project, we picked initiative for international adaptation of our resources. We were supported by the government of Yamal. Currently, we've translated our contact into English, and in 3 years we plan to translate about 2,114 best literature pieces into English. Before the end of 2023, we plan to translate 1,000 more pieces into English. Currently, we have 42 stories already translated into English. They will be uploaded. And in 2022, we plan to, we will start translation into French and Finnish languages. We want to preserve and popularize literature of our indigenous peoples to other countries and societies. Please, we'd like you to go to our website, lit89.ru. You'll get access to unique fonts from anywhere in the world, using any device that's comfortable to you anytime. And this massive of information is completely true. So we have all the information from authors directly. So if you have questions, please ask. I'm ready to answer. Irina Vladimirovna, thank you very much for your report. You can form up your regional section on our Arctic portal. And the last presentation, last accord, floor goes to Kandikan Creative Group. Word goes to Anna Fomina.
Hello, everyone who is here online, those who are offline. I'm really happy to see all of you, but first of all, I would like to give the floor to the author of a project and the initiator. But we have Margarita Papova. She is in the north right now, in the nomadic family, and she has sent us a video, if it's possible to turn it on. Hello, my name is Margarita Papova. Kandikan is my great-grandmother who lived 200 years ago, and that's why I named our creative group Kandikan. We are the most passionate and progressive enthusiasts who tell a new story, and their mission is to convey the message from real guardians of the North. Their role is crucial in today's world. Unfortunately, I cannot be there personally at this crucial seminar because right now I'm in the heart of the cold lands, the Pole of Cold Aimikon district. It's the place where the coldest temperature on Earth was recorded. This video I recorded 2 days ago from a reindeer herding brigade, where our team installed satellite internet with a free annual connection, and from here we'll go further to explore other lands. So please have a fruitful discussion and good insights. So this was the message from Rita, who is trying to bring internet to the north. But I would like to start with a legend. It's not a fairy tale. Actually, it's a true story. It happened 200 years ago, when at the foot of Verkhoyansk mountain, the slopes of which were evidenced the beginning of times. So there was one site, nomadic site was found where everybody died from some disease. The only survivor was a small girl. She was 4 or 6 years old. Nobody knows how she survived. It's good that she survived because today this legend inspired us, and it is carried over from generation to generation. It's a beautiful story about resilience, and hopefully you already had a chance to take a look at the book. Of course, online meetings are far more pleasant than online ones. So I think for online participants, we will also be able to hand over this freshly printed book. The author of this book is a writer, Lidia Tarasova. Illustrations by Alexei Vinokurov. So this tale, a legend, was published in 2 languages. It's the new small book. Before it was a bigger one. And presentation took place on the June 1st, the Day of Children. 70 people all around the globe read excerpts from this book in Instagram. So it was like a patchwork of different readers. So book and internet are just parts of the project undertaken by Kandikan creative group. This creative group unites people of different jobs. I heard that a lot of attention is paid to digitalization, and secondly, to involving young people. So in our creative group, I am not the youngest one. There are real young guys. They are all active participants. Our main mission and our main function is that everyone, free of charge, are united around one idea which seems very important to us. The global mission of this project is to give the world, to mainstream globally a new character called Kandikan, a girl. Like other ethnic characters like Pocahontas, Mulan, Moana. These characters speak about global problems, about cultural identification, preservation of traditions, how important it is to revive languages. And when such important things are verbalized, not at round tables, but are verbalized by some very nice and sweet character, they have a higher impact, and they embrace more people, and they get more people involved. In today's world, as we all know, you are the experts, you know it better than anyone. We know that today we are facing the risk of extinction of languages and traditional lifestyles. And the majority of the Earth's population thinks that it doesn't matter. But what is happening in the world now? Says that everything is important for everyone. Global climate change, for example, this summer just shocked the entire world with the natural disasters. It's a proof of that everything is interlinked. Everything has an influence on everything and everyone. So every language, every person in the world has something to contribute. So we found this idea, and everyone is contributing as much as they can into this big puzzle.
Вот, например, вот это все то, что было пройдено за короткий период.
We did it all within a short period of time, several months. We also published some music videos, some songs, a fairy tale. It was published, and today, 3 hours ago, project manager of our group, Maya Ivanova, met with the ambassador plenipotentiary and extraordinary of Japan to Russia. She also handed him this book. and asked him to give this Kandikan handmade doll made by a famous local designer. She asked the ambassador to give this doll to Yusaki Midzawa, who organized a contest to select candidates for SpaceX flight around the moon. Our Margarita is the participant of this contest, and thanks to Toyohisa Kazuki, we hope that at least one part of our project will fly around the moon. What you see, it's the projects that we've implemented. We had an expedition to the north with a photographer, and we had an exhibition after. But we have so many hopes connected with our future projects. We want to make this fairy tale in electronic format, and also want to produce a feature-length animation movie. We want to write songs, organize expeditions, some events, and launching an endowment fund with copyrights for Kandikan brand products. Kandikan is an inspiration source for us, and the more people get involved in this story, this idea, the happier will we be. Today we have partners. The Association of Indigenous Small-Numbered Peoples of the Sakha Republic, Yakutia, Alrosa Diamond Mining Company, Ministry for Arctic Affairs of the Sakha Republic, Ministry for International Relations, External Relations of the Sakha Republic. So this actually is our doll. And we think that the world will get a lot if we implement this project. The world community will pay attention to the problems of the Arctic, will have a transparent resource platform in form of an endowment fund, will improve legislation for protection of indigenous rights, will implement social and environmental projects in northern districts and in other districts, and the companies will become more socially responsible and will have a new experience of harmonious interaction of all stakeholders. And there will be association of the Global Union, association of people who are interested in solving the problems of indigenous peoples all around the world. Not every specific indigenous ethnic community, but the entire world, because we live in this world. Our children will live in this world. We want it to be very diverse and bright. So this is the Kandikan team who do whatever they can to implement this project, each in their own way and to their own area of expertise. So the main mission of our participation at this forum, which is a very serious and expert one, it is a real honor for us to be here with you, but we wanted to make Kandikan as the guardian of the North to attract more and more like minds. So please also join our team Thank you. So let's summarize. We're 5 minutes beyond the time frames. We've listened to over 20 presentations. Can you see how many of us there are? We have to concentrate our efforts. Unfortunately, the interpreter cannot hear the floor. So if we join our efforts, we'll see a lot more of such beautiful projects as the ones that we heard about today. I think it will be a big success in preserving, reviving languages and record at least those languages that are in danger of extinction. We have to act immediately. And in the end, I would like to add that we'll try to publish all of the articles. So please send us your papers from today's conference and today's roundtable, and we'll publish them. Maybe if you have questions or comments, we're summarizing our roundtable. We've worked for 3 hours. And this last Kandikan project, it's so exciting. They're young and enthusiastic guys. We need more guys like them.
Ну, на этом мы тогда завершаем работу нашу. Может, вопросы или кто-то хочет выступить?
Maybe there are some questions in the audience offline.
Ага, пожалуйста, руки поднимайте, кто хочет.
Please raise your hands who wants to ask a question. Людмила.
Микрофон включите, пожалуйста.
I just wanted to thank you once again and ask, do we have all the contacts of all the presenters? Will there be accumulated somewhere? Because I really want to get in touch with some of the speakers. For example, translation to French language. I would like to contribute to that. Yes, if you send your contacts to the organizing committee, they will ensure that everyone gets everyone's contacts. Any other questions? What if we take a group photo in the Zoom? Let's all turn on our cameras. All together, all people online. Let's make a group photo, and we'll also make a group photo of those who are offline later. Thank you. Oh, the most patient ones are still here, the most enthusiastic ones. So thank you so much for your work, and we'll keep in touch. Please contact us regarding any questions that you have. We are looking forward to cooperation. Thank you and goodbye.
Сфотаемся все здесь, да? Давайте.